Hey guys, welcome to Foundflix and a brand new Stranger Things theory video. But this time it won't be my ideas, but from a Swedish actor named David Thoren that reached out to me about his personal theories on the show. In the show, there are obviously at least 1 billion unanswered questions, and David mainly explores the relationship of Eleven and the monster, as well as the basis of their powers, what he refers to as the hidden story of the show. It's a lot to dig into, so let's head back to Hawkins with the EL-Ectricity theory, courtesy of David Thoren. After reading a lot of different theories about Stranger Things, I noticed the vast majority of them seem to discuss different possibilities that lack any sort of evidence. Now, I'm not saying all of them are totally wrong, I'm just saying that most of them feel like a long stretch. I also believe that after using so many references to so many movies and books, the Duffers must have left more accurate hints that we can actually follow up. The show is built on opposites, the upside down, good and bad, Demogorgon's 2 heads, and so on. So it makes sense to think Eleven and the Demogorgon are also representing 2 sides, good and bad. I think it is an interesting idea, but there is not close to enough evidence in the show for this theory, and after breaking down the first season, I would argue it is not even part of the hidden plot. There is simply no way to tell who the monster is at this point. But I think people are missing the real hints that are actually there and explains a lot about the core of the show. For me, the most important question after the first season was not who the monster was, but what it actually wants. Dr. Brenner says himself, we don't really understand it, but its behavior is predictable. Like all animals it eats, it will take more sons, more daughters. The teenagers also compare the monster to a shark hunting for blood. But wait a second, did it eat Will? No. Did it eat Barb? No. So what does this tell us? It tells us there has to be more to the monster story than just eating and kidnapping people over to the upside down. And I figured out what it is. What first caught my attention was Steve and Nancy's answer to Hopper's question, you say blood draws this thing? The teenagers answer we don't know and say it's just a theory. Their backpedaling about the blood theory should catch most nerds' attention, but apparently it hasn't. I mean, they seem pretty convinced about the blood drawing the monster when they decide to cut open their hands, specifically to lure the monster, so why are they changing what they say? They're saying there is a possibility that the blood theory is not 100% accurate, and guess what? It's not. If it was, they wouldn't use the term theory the way they did. They would just explain why they think it's drawn to blood and move on. Again, we are led to believe blood is what brings the monster out from the dark, but there was no blood seen when it was hunting Will. And should we just assume that the other 6 people that have gone missing were bleeding? Out of 8 victims, we only know for certain that one of them was bleeding, Barb. Is that really enough evidence to rule out any other kind of motives that the monster might have? I don't think so. And oh, I almost forgot the poor little scientist in the beginning of the show. Was he bleeding? Nope. So there has to be something else to the monster's intentions. First of all, did everyone not pay attention to the giant hints seen with the flashing lights whenever something from the upside down appears? The first time the monster was brought into the real world, it was through a portal in the Hawkins National Laboratory, United States Department of Energy. The kid's teacher seems to be very well read on the subject, saying that such a portal could only be opened with an incredible amount of energy. I can only think of one person with that kind of power, and she said it herself, I opened the gate. The monster is not after blood or people to eat, it's after energy. A few more hints to look at. Will accidentally ran into the monster, but he was the only living thing in Mirkwood at the time, so the monster followed him. As he ran out to get his gun in the shed, there was a little light bulb in there that was shining as bright as possible. What was the setup when it took Barb? Bright lights all over the house in the middle of the night, and Barb was sitting above a big shining pretty bright light. Just saying. Now the monster had reoccurring visits to the Byers house, and he set up there, oh yeah, the millions of light bulbs and lamps that Joyce put up. People might say, but it's gotta be blood, they talk about it all the time in the show. This does make sense, but only for one specific reason. Whenever Eleven uses her power, she starts bleeding. But the monster doesn't want blood, it wants Eleven and her power. The blood is just something that the monster connects to her. The school scene at the end of the season is a great demonstration of this. Let me break it down real quick. After being injured at the Byers house, the monster goes back to its cave to rest and heal. But as Eleven is using her powers in the school, the monster feels it and goes there. The kids think that it's the blood that attracts it after Eleven has killed a group of agents, but then why would the monster just let them be? It jumps over all the dead people and goes after the only 3 humans that are not attacking it. At this point, the monster is also very injured, so why risk it? It can just take all the bloody corpses and go home to its cozy little cave, but it doesn't. It kills everything that stands in its way to get to Eleven. I don't know how many heavily armed men it took down one after another just to get to a little child. Like Dr. Brenner says to Eleven, it's calling out to you, it wants you. A hint that people did pick up on was when Eleven is fighting with the monster in the end. A few seconds after Eleven raises her hand to blow the Demogorgon into the wall, the monster raises its own hand. In one theory where people think Eleven is the monster, it's believed that the monster is mirroring her because they are the same person. The same reason why why they both disappear at the same time when she tries to kill it. If she kills the monster, she kills herself. But I don't think this theory is quite right. They are not the same person. If they were connected like that, why wasn't 11 hurt when the teenagers went crazy on the monster at the buyer's house? They set it on fire and she didn't feel a thing? They haven't been mirroring each other before, so why would it suddenly start in the school? And the suggested mirroring is not even accurate. The monster puts up its hand after 11 does, and when she starts to use her powers more, the monster's hand goes down. If they are connected and she starts to use more power, wouldn't it make sense that that would reflect itself in the monster as well? So why did the monster reach out with its hand? It's quite simple. The monster was not mirroring 11. It's doing what it's been doing all the time, reaching out for 11 and her powers. And there is more to the scene. There is another hint that people seem to have missed. When this dark monster out of evil is ripped apart, no one seems to notice all the bright light shining inside it. The whole chest of the monster is filled with some bright energy. Is that not weird? The monster who everyone thinks wants blood and lives in a world of cold darkness has a big sparkly light in its chest? If you ask me, this is energy that the monster has been able to consume. It might even be energy from Barb and some from Will. Yes, some sort of life energy, I'll get to that. This would explain why Will is acting weird and keeps quiet about the slugs in the end scene. Part of him is now inside the monster. Another question I found interesting is why the Demogorgon appears when 11 tries to reach the Russian guy in the in-between. I think that if it weren't for her touching the monster, it would probably not notice her either. To me, it looks like the monster was busy in his own world, but as we've seen, Elle and the monster are destined to connect. I would say that the monster was reaching out for power and 11 picked up on that. She cannot really control her powers, especially at this point, and connected to it unwillingly. Which brings me to 11 and her mysterious powers. We all know 11 has powers similar to the ones the monster seems to have, but eventually even stronger. Dustin even refers to her as Yoda, and what does Yoda have? The Force. But what is the Force exactly? Well, let's Google it. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together. An energy field created by all living things. What if everyone has this energy that 11 has, but only 11 is capable of accessing it, just like the Jedi in Star Wars? Then maybe the monster didn't pump things into its victims, but rather was sucking something out. What if both Barb and Will were actually drained of their life energy? The slugs are not in Will to incubate, but to harvest energy. The long tube in Will was sucking out his energy. It just wasn't finished yet, but it was still long enough to affect him and make him act somewhat weird in the last scene. It would also explain what is happening to him as he sees the Upside Down instead of his normal bathroom. What if the monster consumed the energy that was drained from Will? Maybe to heal after it was severely injured by the teenagers. That means part of Will is in the monster. And where is the monster's home turf? In the Upside Down, of course. So when the light starts to flicker in the bathroom and in it we see the Upside Down, it's because Will sees through what is a part of him after his time getting drained in the library. So you might be saying, wait, at this point the monster is already dead. No way, the monster is not dead, but I'll get to that too. But first to the most epic clue in the whole season. Our little Jedi's name is 11, but her friends don't call her that, they call her Elle. Now when the kids wanted to use the radio in the school but were interrupted by their teacher, they lied and said that Elle was from Sweden. Quite a weird thing to put in the show, don't you think? I mean, why pick Sweden specifically? If the teacher would have asked her to speak or tell him anything about Sweden, she obviously would fail big time. I have to admit I didn't get it at first either, but then it hit me. The whole time they are calling her Elle and then lying saying she is Swedish. So does anyone know what Elle means in Swedish? It means electricity. They are literally calling her a form of energy all the time. And now all of a sudden it makes even more sense that the kids keep referring to Elle as a drained battery after using her powers. The first portal was open at the US Department of Energy. On their cars it says Hawkins Power and Light. Whenever the monster is present, all the lights start going crazy. The portal has a very strong electromagnetic field. The monster comes from a cold world without energy, yet it has a bright shining light in its chest. They say 11 is like Yoda with the Force equaling energy. They call her electricity and say she is like a drained battery. I mean, come on! It's like a giant billboard saying, hey, what's up with all that energy stuff? Look at the facts. We saw the monster eat a deer, but it did not eat Barb nor Will. Now the line by Dr. Brenner, we do not quite understand it, makes perfect sense. They know it eats animals, but they don't know what the monster is really after. The teenagers point out that sharks can smell blood from long distance, but sharks do that to find food and eat it, part of their natural instincts. But the Demogorgon does not eat the thing that it is hunting. It hunts people for the energy, not to eat them. And of course, who has the most energy? 11. People have also been discussing why the monster looks like a flower. Well, the answer is obvious. When flowers grow, what do? They point towards their energy source, normally the sun. It's the same thing here. The monster is a flower striving towards the energy source L, aka electricity. Some have picked up the hint with that line, the weird flowers in the cave. This could be referring to the monster and its cave, and maybe even more than one monster existing. The Demogorgon is a flower in a cave where the sun doesn't shine, so naturally it has to have another energy source, 11. Like I already mentioned, Dr. Brenner says it's calling out to you. It wants you. Damn right it wants 11. It wants her energy. And when 11 says I am the monster, she does not mean it literally. That would be way too obvious. She simply means that she is the one who did something bad. So what did she do? As she said, she opened the gate to the upside down. Probably not willingly, but it was with her powers. She brought the monster into the real world. That's why she is the bad guy. And since she is the one the monster is hunting, she feels responsible for what is happening. But she is too afraid to face it at first. But when she is putting all of her friends in danger in the school scene, she has had enough and says no more. This hints that she has been struggling with their inevitable showdown for quite some time. At this point, I also think that Hopper knows about what is going on. In episode 7, they share a very interesting look at each other after she finds out that Hopper has seen the gate. It really looks like she now can trust him with what really has been happening, and I think they have a private off-screen talk about that. This would explain why Hopper is selling her out to Dr. Brenner so easily, something I think he would never do otherwise. Hopper now knows what is going on, and he knows what 11 can do if she has to. That's also the reason he can tell the people at the lab that he knows everything. So what happens to 11 and the monster in the end? This is one question no one seems to be able to answer without speculating. If she killed them both, why is Hopper putting out food in Eggos? Is she alive? Is the monster alive? Don't worry, I've got the answers. Elle is clearly stronger than the monster, but she obviously cannot simply kill or destroy it. At the same time, she knows that the monster will keep hunting her and hurt even more people if they both stay in the real world. So she does the thing that she has been so afraid to do. She teleports the both of them to the upside down. There she can face the monster without putting her friends in danger. Yes, 11 can teleport just like the monster teleported Will and Barb. Deal with it. So no, she is not dead. She is in the upside down, keeping the monster at bay from entering the real world. That's why Hopper is leaving food for her, so she can quickly go to the real world either by teleporting or through a portal in the woods where no one sees her, taking the food back with her to the upside down. This brings us to Hopper and trying to figure out what exactly he's doing with the bad guys. Well, after everything that has happened, I think that both parties realize they need each other. So they make a deal to help each other. Hopper tries to help 11 by finding a solution to how she can get back to the real world without putting anyone in danger. And he also tries to help the bad guys to fix their problem with the giant portal in their basement, because at this point most of the leaders from Dr. Brenner's squad are pretty much all dead. So I would say that Hopper is the most qualified candidate for the job. And like I said, Hopper would never sell Elle out like that if he hadn't made sure that she can handle the repercussions. They both were in on it and had the plan figured out. Doesn't the look they share tell you something? By the way, that's how Hopper knows she likes Eggos. They have been communicating after the scene in the school, not because they were related like one theory is suggesting. I mean, how would that even work? Hopper is like, oh yeah, I totally forgot I have another daughter that loves Eggos. What's up, Elle? There you have it, guys, the EL-Ectricity theory. I only briefly mentioned in a previous video that I think the monster and 11's powers are tied to electricity, but didn't explore anywhere near the degree David did. I think his theory brings up a lot of solid ideas and gives us a lot of new information and theories to chew on. What do you guys think about the theory? Or do you have a theory of your own? I'd love to hear it, and if you put as much time into it as David, might even make a video about it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching Found Flicks. See you next time.